He made me believe he fell in love with me. Every word he said, every smile he gave, every moment he shared felt like something real, something warm, something honest. But the truth came slowly, like a shadow forming behind me, piece by piece, until one day I finally saw it clearly. He wasn't falling for me. He was studying me. Everything I liked, he liked. Everything I believed in, he believed in. Every fear I whispered, he mirrored with his own. At first, it felt magical, like we were the same soul in two different bodies. I thought we were connected. I thought we were perfect for each other. I thought we were meant to be, but people who truly love you don't need to become you. He started copying the way I spoke, the way I laughed, the things I posted, the dreams I shared, the music I listened to, even the phrases I used without thinking. Every time I opened myself up, he turned it into a script. Every time I trusted him with a piece of my heart, he used it to build a version of himself that matched me so perfectly it felt unnatural. I didn't understand it at first. I thought it was affection. I thought it was chemistry. I thought it was fate. But then I noticed something terrifying. He had no identity when I wasn't around. No opinions of his own. No dreams of his own. No personality that existed outside of what he borrowed from me. He didn't want me. He wanted to become whatever I wanted. And the day I realized that, the love story I thought I was living turned into something darker, something I didn't have a name for yet, but I would soon. I didn't realize he was copying me in the beginning, because in the beginning, it felt like connection. It felt like we had the same thoughts, the same taste, the same rhythm. I told myself that maybe I had finally found someone who understood me without effort. Someone who shared the same soul patterns I did. Someone who mirrored the world the way I saw. It started small. The first time we talked about music, I mentioned a song I loved, one that felt personal to me, one that had carried me through hard nights. The next day, he messaged me saying he couldn't stop listening to it. I thought it was sweet. I thought it was a sign. But now I look back and wonder why he never had a song of his own. Then came the books. I told him about one that changed me years ago, a book I only mentioned in passing. 2 days later, he sent me a picture of the same book on his desk. He said, "I've always wanted to read this. Always." The word felt heavy, because if he had always wanted to read it, why did he only remember after I said it? But again, I ignored it. Because it's easier to believe someone is similar to you than to believe they're studying you. I should have noticed the pattern then. But love makes small things look meaningful. Love makes coincidences feel magical. Love makes you blind in the most beautiful and dangerous ways. The more I shared, the more he shifted. When I told him I liked a certain type of humor, suddenly he had that humor. When I mentioned I hated loud arguments, he said he hated them too. When I confessed my insecurities, he claimed to have the same ones. When I talked about my past, he mirrored a version of his own that aligned perfectly with mine. It wasn't synchronicity. It was imitation. But I didn't know that yet. There was a moment that still haunts me. A moment that should have opened my eyes long before everything fell apart. We were texting late at night, one of those deep conversations that stretch into dawn. I told him that when I'm overwhelmed, I disconnect. I go quiet. I retreat into myself until I can feel normal again. He replied, "I'm the same way." The next week, when he went silent for hours, I brushed it off thinking he was overwhelmed too. But later, I found out he wasn't overwhelmed at all. He was out with friends, laughing, drinking, being loud and carefree. The opposite of what he told me. He wasn't retreating. He was mimicking my habits so I wouldn't question his. I kept giving him pieces of myself, and he kept building himself with them. Someone who truly loves you doesn't try to become you. They stand beside you as themselves. They have their own shape, their own mind, their own heartbeat. But he had none of that. His entire personality shifted based on what he thought I wanted. It wasn't love. It was adaptation. People think the scariest thing in love is being left. But sometimes the scariest thing is being mirrored, not because mirrors don't love you. They only reflect you. The turning point came slowly, almost quietly. I started noticing he didn't have friends who truly knew him. The few he talked about had vague stories, inconsistent details. When I asked about his family, he gave answers that felt rehearsed. When I asked about his past relationships, he made them sound like shadows he couldn't fully describe. It wasn't that he was hiding the truth. He simply didn't have one. He was always asking me deeper questions. Questions about my childhood, my heartbreaks, my weaknesses, my fears. Questions that made me feel seen, but later felt like he was gathering information. He remembered every detail too well. Not in a romantic way, but in a calculated way. Sometimes he would say things exactly the way I once said them. Word for word, I didn't see it as manipulation. Then I saw it as connection, because I wanted connection. I wanted love. I wanted someone who understood me so deeply that the world made sense. Again, but real understanding doesn't feel like duplication. Real love doesn't feel like imitation. Then came the day that shattered the illusion. We were talking about dreams. Big dreams. Life dreams. I told him about my future goals, the things I was working toward quietly, the things I had never told anyone else. He listened closely, too closely. He asked questions. He took mental notes. And then he said something that made my stomach twist. That's crazy. I've had the exact same dream since I was a kid. The exact same dream, same details, same path, same struggles. He didn't even bother to change it a little. That was the first time I paused. Something inside me whispered that the puzzle wasn't fitting together naturally. It felt assembled, forced, controlled, like he was building himself according to my blueprint. After that, I started paying attention. I tested small things. I mentioned liking a random movie one he claimed he never watched. The next day, he said he watched it and loved it just as much as I did. I said I prefer night walks over morning ones. Suddenly, he said he had always been a night person. I said I used to write in a journal. 2 days later, he said he started journaling. It wasn't connection. It was replication. And the truth revealed itself slowly in the smallest ways. When I disagreed with something publicly, he changed his opinion immediately. When I talked about something I valued, he said he valued it too. When I mentioned something I disliked in people, he made sure he never displayed that trait, at least not in front of me. It was like he was shaping himself into the perfect version of everything I wanted. But perfection isn't real. And neither was he. The more I discovered, the more I felt sick. Because behind every piece of himself he showed me was a copy of something I had shown him first. Our entire relationship wasn't built on love. It was built on imitation. He didn't love me. He loved the identity he borrowed from me. And once I realized that, everything changed. Because a love that copies you can't ever truly choose you. The more I started noticing his patterns, the more the truth began revealing itself in ways that felt both obvious and frightening. It was like watching a mask slowly slip off someone's face, not violently, not dramatically, but quietly, inch by inch, until the real version beneath looked nothing like the one you trusted. And what I saw beneath his mask wasn't darkness. It was emptiness. a hollow space where a personality was supposed to be. He didn't know who he was. So he became whoever I needed him to be. At first, the realization made me feel guilty. I wondered if I was being unfair, if I was reading too much into things, if maybe I was overanalyzing. But the universe has a strange way of confirming things once you become aware. Suddenly, all the small things I once ignored became loud enough to hear clearly. It started with his stories. The stories he used to tell me about himself, about his past, his struggles, his pain. I began noticing inconsistencies. Details changed. Timelines shifted. Explanations didn't add up. One day he said he hated his hometown. Another day he said he missed it. One week he said he never liked sports. The next week he said he used to play all the time. His life wasn't a story. It was improvisation. The worst part was that I didn't notice any of it before because I was too busy falling for the version of him he shaped around my heart. But once I stopped seeing him through the filter of hope, the cracks appeared everywhere. One evening, we were talking about childhood memories. I shared something deeply personal, a moment I regretted, a moment that changed me, something I had never told anyone else. He listened intensely, eyes wide, voice soft, asking questions with the exact sensitivity someone emotionally mature would have. 2 days later, I heard him tell a friend a similar story. My story, with tiny edits, different places, different people, but the same emotional arc. He took my vulnerability and turned it into part of his identity. I felt my breath catch in my throat. I didn't confront him then, but something inside me shifted. He wasn't connecting with me. He was absorbing me. Then came the mimicry in my speech. He started using phrases I always said, words only I used. Even the way I laughed sometimes, he copied it. It felt like watching a reflection of myself through someone else's voice. At first, I thought it was cute, but over time, it felt suffocating, like he was slowly erasing himself to fill his E. And chameleons don't love. They adapt. The moment that completely shattered the illusion came during a video call. I was crying that night, really crying, overwhelmed, exhausted, carrying more weight than I could hold alone. He listened gently at first, nodding, comforting. Then suddenly, he repeated my exact words back to me. Not paraphrased, not empathized, just repeated verbatim, like a script. Like emotional language he learned and practiced. I froze, because the way he said it, there was no feeling behind it. Just imitation. It was like watching someone pretend to cry at a funeral, not because they feel grief, but because they know they're supposed to. He didn't feel my emotions, he copied my emotional expression. And that's when I understood the truth I had been avoiding. He didn't love me. He loved the identity he created through me. As the days passed, the copying became even more obvious and uncomfortable. He began telling people we had the same values, the same dreams, the same views on life. But whenever someone asked him about his own ambitions, he struggled to answer. He paused too long, he looked lost, like he was searching for a version of himself that didn't exist outside of me. One day, I asked him directly, "What do you really want in life?" He stared at me, eyes confused, voice uncertain, and said, "What do you want?" I repeated, "No, what do you want?" He looked down and whispered, "Whatever makes you happy." That wasn't love, that was dependency, that was emptiness, that was fear of being abandoned by the version of myself he had become addicted to copying. The final sign came quietly, like most devastating truths do. I noticed he couldn't make decisions without me. What to wear, what to eat, where to go, how to respond to people, what opinion to hold. Everything required my validation, not because he respected me, but because his personality depended on my approval. He once said, "I don't want to disappoint you." But what he really meant was, "I don't know how to exist without copying you." The weight of that realization crushed something inside me. Because I wasn't in a relationship, I was in a reflection. I wasn't being loved, I was being studied. I wasn't chosen, I was being used as a blueprint. He didn't fall in love with me. He constructed himself around me, piece by piece, trait by trait, memory by memory. But the scariest part wasn't that he copied me. It was that I couldn't find the real him anywhere, not even in the places where people usually hide their truth. And I knew what was coming. I could feel it. The ending wasn't going to be a breakup like everyone else experiences. It was going to be something much harder. I was going to lose someone who never existed in the first place. The day everything finally fell apart didn't begin with a fight. It didn't begin with anger or accusations or loud emotions. It began quietly, the same way the truth always begins: soft, subtle, but impossible to ignore once it appears. It started with a simple question I asked him: "Who are you when you're not with me?" He didn't answer, not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't. He looked at me with an expression that should have been familiar, yet suddenly felt like I was staring at a stranger wearing the shape of someone I once loved. His eyes were frantic, searching, like he was trying to locate something inside himself, but couldn't. It was the first time I saw fear in him, not fear of losing me, but fear of being exposed. I repeated, "Who are you when you're alone?" He blinked, swallowed hard, and said, "I don't know." And the honesty of those 3 words hit me harder than any lie he had ever told. Because it wasn't a confession, it was a revelation. He didn't lose himself in loving me. He never had a self to begin with. In that moment, everything made sense: the copying, the mirroring, the mimicry, the empty contradictions, the shifting stories, the borrowed personality. He wasn't trying to manipulate me. He wasn't trying to deceive me. He was trying to survive through imitation. Because he had learned long ago that the easiest way to be liked was to become whatever the other person wanted. And I had been the perfect template. The next days were a blur of realizations I didn't want to have but couldn't escape. I began revisiting our conversations in my mind, not just the words, but the patterns. The way he always waited for my reaction before forming his own. The way he studied my expressions like he was memorizing them. The way he looked at me when I talked, like he wasn't listening for meaning, but for cues. One evening, we talked on a video call. I tried to ask him simple things: his favorite childhood memory, his proudest moment, his biggest fear. His answers were vague, rehearsed, mismatched. It was like he was pulling pieces from different stories, different people, different moments, stitching them together to sound convincing. And then I realized something so heartbreaking I almost felt guilty for noticing it. He had no emotional core. His emotions didn't come from inside. They were reactions he learned by watching others. When I cried, he repeated comforting words he once heard me say to a friend. When I laughed, he laughed a half second after me. When I told a joke, he said he loved my humor, and the next week, he started telling the same jokes to others as if they were his own. He wasn't evil. He wasn't dangerous. He was empty, but emptiness can still hurt you, especially when it tries to fill itself with your identity. The breaking point came unexpectedly. I didn't plan it. I didn't prepare for it. It just happened. We were talking like conversation, nothing emotional. And he said something that made the last piece fall into place. He said, "You make me feel real." Double quotes, real. The word echoed in my chest like a warning. People don't become real through love. They become real through identity. Through experiences, through truth, through pain, through growth, through authenticity. He didn't want love. He wanted identity. He wanted to feel like someone, and loving me made him feel like he existed. But that's not love. That's dependency wrapped in admiration. That night, I cried not because I missed him, but because I finally understood the role I had unknowingly played. I wasn't his partner. I was his blueprint. I wasn't his love. I was his personality. I wasn't his choice. I was his template. He didn't fall in love with me. He assembled himself using me. The next morning, I asked him to meet. He agreed instantly like he was afraid to risk losing access to the identity he built around me. When he arrived, he looked nervous, like he sensed what was coming. His eyes scanned my face the way they always did, searching for emotional cues to copy. But this time, I gave him none. I began gently. I told him I cared about him deeply, but I could no longer pretend not to see the truth. I told him he didn't know who he was. I told him he had been copying me, mirroring me, shaping himself around me. His face twisted in pain, not anger, not defensiveness, but confusion. He whispered, "I didn't mean to," and I believed him. Because it wasn't intentional. It was survival. I said, "You need to find yourself." His voice broke as he said, "I don't know how," and my heart ached, not out of love, but out of empathy. Because I finally understood that all the things I thought were manipulation weren't manipulation. They were instinct, the instinct of someone who didn't know how to exist in their own shape. He whispered, "Tell me who to be," and the sadness of that sentence nearly destroyed me. Because I once wanted to help him, love him, fix him. But fixing someone who hasn't found themselves yet only turns them into another version of you. I said, "I can't be the person you build yourself from." He begged quietly, "Please don't leave." I stayed silent because I wasn't leaving out of anger. I wasn't leaving out of betrayal. I was leaving because staying meant losing myself slowly, piece by piece. As he absorbed everything I was, he said, "I love you." And for the first time since we met, I didn't believe him. Not because he was lying, but because he didn't understand what love was. Love wasn't imitation. Love wasn't reflection. Love wasn't dependency. Love wasn't becoming someone else to be accepted. Love was truth. And there was no truth inside him yet. I whispered, "You don't love me. You love feeling complete." He cried, not loudly, not desperately, but softly, like someone who didn't fully understand the emotion but knew it hurt. Then he said something that ended everything. "If you leave, I won't know who I am anymore." And that's when I realized the ultimate truth. I was never losing him. He was losing himself because he never existed outside of who he copied. I held his hands and said, "That's why I have to go. You'll never find yourself if you keep living through me." His shoulders shook. He kept whispering, "Don't leave me." But all this time, he wasn't afraid of losing love. He was afraid of losing identity. I stood up. He froze. Then I said the most painful and most honest thing I ever said to him. "You can't become me. You deserve to discover you." And then I walked away. Not out of anger, not out of heartbreak, but out of clarity. And slowly, I realized something profound. There's a different kind of heartbreak that comes from losing someone who never truly existed. It's not loud. It's not explosive. It's not dramatic. It's a quiet ache, a soft mourning for the illusion you fell in love with. He didn't fall in love with me. He copied me. But in leaving him, I saved myself from disappearing into the version of me he tried to become. And somewhere out there, I hope he learns to become someone real, not a reflection, not a mirror, not an imitation, but a man with his own voice, his own life, his own truth. Because love isn't about copying someone you admire. Love is about standing beside someone as yourself. And now, I finally have myself, Ba.